spending bill. A government shutdown looms, and perhaps a scrap over the debt ceiling. Democrats are fighting among themselves about what's in the expensive spending bill. Some Republicans will support the bipartisan infrastructure package, but forget it when it comes to $3.5 trillion in social spending. West Virginia's Joe Manchin wants Democrats to tap the brakes on the big spending bill until the party justifies the cost. Internal Democratic infighting could derail both bills.
Fox's Chad Pergram at the Capitol. After spending the holiday weekend at his home in Delaware, President Biden returned to the White House Monday evening. He'll leave Tuesday to tour flood damage in parts of New York and New Jersey. As many as 4 people are still missing in New Jersey since Wednesday's heavy rains. Nothing further from the president yet on the Americans still stuck in Afghanistan. There are reports of plane loads of people stranded on the tarmac.
Satellite images show 6 planes at the Mazar-e-Sharif airport in northern Afghanistan, as the Taliban is reportedly blocking the planes from taking off, stranding Americans and Afghans. Republican House member Michael McCall told Fox News Sunday that the flights were cleared for takeoff by the U.S. State Department, though provided no additional evidence. Reports indicate up to 1,000 people could be stuck at the airport, all on chartered planes. In the Afghan capital of Kabul, a new image shows a Taliban flag painted outside the former U.S. embassy as the group works to put together a government.
It's Fox's Trey Yingst reporting from Doha, Qatar, where Secretary of State Blinken and Defense Secretary Austin met with leaders Monday about being a diplomatic go-between with the Taliban. America is listening to Fox News.
Here at Guam Auto Spot, we have the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars, like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage, as low as $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Or this 2021 Buick Encore, as low as $237 per paycheck, 0 down for 72 months. Call 478-AUTO to schedule a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
A homeowner's policy protects much more than just your house. It also protects you against claims from someone being hurt on your property. If a visitor is injured at your place, how much are you covered for? The smart thing to do is get the answer today.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Pre-trial arguments resume this week in the case against alleged 9/11 mastermind Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, one of a handful of detainees still remaining at the U.S. base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. KSM's attorneys are likely to argue that information obtained by coercive techniques, such as waterboarding, should be excluded from his trial. A statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee is about to be removed from Richmond, Virginia, following a lengthy court battle.
Virginia's Democratic Governor Ralph Northam announced in a statement that the removal will happen Wednesday. It's an event more than a year in the making. He initially announced his intent in June of 2020, days after the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. The Lee statue stands in Richmond, once a capital of the Confederacy. Large crowds are expected to watch the dismantling. Protective fencing will be put up Tuesday. The day after the statue comes down, plaques will be removed, as well as a time capsule believed to be at the site. The removal Wednesday will also be live-streamed. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Detectives in Florida say they may never know for sure why a Marine veteran killed a family of 4 with whom he had no connection. Authorities say Brian Riley confessed to killing a 40-year-old man, his 33-year-old girlfriend, their 3-month-old son, and the woman's 62-year-old mother at their home in Lakeland on Sunday. Riley has reportedly admitted to the killing, saying he was high on meth at the time. A well-known television actor has died.
Michael K. Williams, best known as Omar Little in The Wire, was found dead in his Brooklyn apartment Monday. According to the Post, authorities say drug paraphernalia was found in his apartment, suggesting a possible overdose. The 54-year-old was found dead by his nephew. The actor also starred as Chalky White in Boardwalk Empire. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Diving and seeing our coral reef full of life.
I really love hiking the trails.
I really love going to the beach. The sunsets are amazing.
Your island needs you. Help preserve what makes our island home. Stop those who threaten our wildlife, plants, and environment. Install the free TOCA app and report poaching, littering, burning, and other environmental crimes. Call 864-TOCA or install the free TOCA app today. This public service announcement is brought to you by the Department of Agriculture, UOG Grant, and Choice Broadcasting.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, even when I have a frog in my throat, shall not be infringed. So here we are, back again on a Tuesday for a 4-day week of Tall Tales. Well, 4-day a week is better than no week at all. So we like those big 5-day weeks. There's nothing better than starting out at 4 p.m., 1600 on a Monday afternoon, knowing we got 5 whole days of Tall Tales ahead of us. But that's not where we are today, but we'll make the best of it. So let's start out with Zemi Ikotny. Yeah, on Saturday, those out of work as well as a result of the Wuhan virus pandemic concluded their final week of eligibility for pandemic unemployment assistance benefits. In a Labor Day message to the island's workers, Guam Department of Labor Director David Del Isla, also known as the Director of Labor, said the program has dispersed almost $800 million to 30,795 claimants. That's $800 million that's gone into the Guam economy. You know, just think of where we could be if Guam were an independent country. If the separatists had their way, why we would, instead of 800 million, we'd probably have 80 cents maybe. Nationally, the program is ending on a high note. While some economists debate whether it's ending too early, the Associated Press reported the unemployment rate was down to 5.2 as of last week. In fact, much of the nation is faced with a labor shortage. In most of the United States, schools are back in session for in-person classes, domestic travel, and tourism is operation, and businesses are open. On Guam, the situation is very different. The Department of Labor reported that the island's unemployment rate was 11.4% in June, down from a high of 19.4% in December 2020, but much higher than the pre-pandemic rate of 6.1% in December 2019. It's clear that we need to get the island's workforce back to work. The problem is that our leading industry, tourism, is not rebounding as quickly as we would like. International travel is still challenging, and visitors face cumbersome quarantine requirements after they return home from traveling here. The Department of Labor, in partnership with educational institutions, has been retraining workers for new jobs in new fields, but challenges remain. Although schools reopened briefly, they closed again for at least several weeks as the island grapples with yet another wave of Wuhan virus infections. When students learn from home, parents either have to work from home to supervise their children or they have to forego work. For many jobs, remote work simply is not possible. The government has to balance the need to control infections, especially among unvaccinated school population, with the need to keep the economy working. For some people, the end of the pandemic unemployment benefits will no doubt encourage them to get back to work. But for many others, the jobs are not yet there. Jobs need to be created. Potential workers need to be trained. Child care issues need to be resolved. With the end of pandemic unemployment, we need to focus on getting workers into jobs and rebuilding our economy. Jobs are not created. We hear people who run for various political offices saying, as a matter of fact, I remember when Joe Biden was the vice presidential candidate with Barack Obama back in 2008, and one of his famous statements on TV was, the answer to these problems is a three-letter word, J-O-B-S. That is not, I'm not being facetious. He actually said that. The answer to this is a three-letter word, J-O-B-S. We should have known way back then, right? Yeah, jobs. So people who run for office say, you know, when I get into office, I'm going to work on creating jobs. The government does not create jobs. The government kills jobs by taking money out of the economy. Every nickel that you pay in taxes is a nickel that someone, an entrepreneur, a business owner, someone who wants to start a business, someone who wants to produce something could put to good use. The government produces nothing. So when I see this, jobs need to be created. Knowing the Daily News, I know who they are talking to, and that would be a mistake. What the government needs to do is get out of the way and let people who want to create jobs, let them go and let them do it. All right, that's the Daily News for today. I'm saving ink on that one. And then we have the Post. With waning vaccine efficiency, Gov Guam's message needs to be complete. Getting vaccinated against Wuhan virus, says our government for months now, will keep us from getting seriously ill and landing in a hospital. Getting the shot will also stem the spread of the virus that causes Wuhan virus and help fight back and end the pandemic, we've been told repeatedly. About a month ago, the government of Guam's Operation Liberate Guam convinced more than 104,000 residents, or about 80% of the vaccine-eligible Guamanians, to get immunized against the virus that causes Wuhan virus. But we have not been liberated from the pandemic. We are back in the heightened pandemic mode, with the government of Guam requiring vaccinations as a passport for limited gatherings. Schools from kindergarten through 12th grade have been shut down indefinitely. This wasn't the case just months ago. After the arrival of the vaccines in December, Guam's Wuhan virus cases, hospitalization, and risk score became negligible. That the island reopened and schools in island-wide returned to face-to-face learning. We even started dining in restaurants, holding get-togethers with friends and family, and easing their way back into their cubicles. And then the Delta variant came. No! Now our risk score has shot through the roof at 46 from less than 1 more than a month ago. Our hospitalizations have been in dozens of patients daily, from 0 to a few almost 2 months ago. We've lost nearly a dozen Guam residents since the Delta variant began spreading in our community. The Delta variant, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 1, is more than 2 times as contagious as the previous variants. 2, might cause more severe illness than previous variants in unvaccinated people. 3, can infect even fully vaccinated people, which is also known as the, quote, breakthrough case. For fully vaccinated people with Delta variant breakthrough infections can spread the virus to others. The messaging to encourage everyone to be vaccinated against Wuhan virus is still important. The vaccines have been proven to prevent most people from falling seriously ill. CDC studies have also shown the efficacy of the vaccine seems to be waning, and people need to hear that that is a part of the messaging too. Lately, a number of patients who fell ill to Wuhan virus were hospitalized on Guam and have been vaccinated. As an example, on Sunday, 20 of the 35 Wuhan virus patients at Guam Memorial Hospital were unvaccinated. Hold on. 20 of 35 were unvaccinated. I wonder if any of the people at the hospital had been vaccinated, and if that were the case, how many there would have been. What do you think, Jose?
But we're only supposed to know about the unvaccinated.
Yeah, the fact that 15 people who had been vaccinated were there. Never mind, there's nothing to see here. Keep moving. Concentrate on the 20 that weren't. That means 57% were vaccinated, but still ended up hospitalized. Now, that doesn't come out right.
That's even worse.
Yeah. I think what they're saying is that 20 of 35 were unvaccinated. That comes out to 57%. At Guam Regional Medical Center, the Wuhan virus patients were even split. 50 were, 50 were not. Yeah, all of this, go out and get vaccinated so you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. One of the surveys showed before Delta, the Wuhan virus infection among surveyed nursing home residents showed 74% for either Moderna vaccine, 74.2% for Pfizer, and 74.7% for Moderna. When Delta arrived, about 50 to 53% of the nursing home residents who were vaccinated still felt ill, according to the survey. GovGuam messaging, apart from encouraging people to get vaccinated, should equally emphasize the caveats. You can still get Wuhan virus after you're vaccinated, especially the Delta variant. You can still spread the virus that causes Wuhan virus even if you've been vaccinated. Some breakthrough cases are serious enough to lead to hospitalization. This isn't to cast doubt on the efforts toward getting Guamanians to get vaccinated. Keep in mind the bigger picture. Data shows that more people who fall very ill are unvaccinated. Giving a fuller picture helps Guam residents reach well-informed decisions and encourages safety practices rather than give vaccinated residents a false sense of invincibility. A sense of invisibility actually belongs to the tailgaters, vaccinated or not vaccinated, because they know the truth. People will appreciate full disclosure. The pandemic is far from over. We need to be reminded we can't let our guard down. Wear face masks properly. Wash hands frequently. Stay a safe distance from others. Well, pretty good, you know.
And still barely a peep about this ridiculous executive order of vaccinated versus unvaccinated.
Really. And at least they didn't use the whitewash on the fact that being vaccinated does not mean that you're not going to get sick. They didn't. They came right out and put that out in front, which needs to be done. And human nature being what it is, if someone paints a very rosy picture in order to persuade you, and then you find out that it really wasn't the roses, it was the thorns that were there, that person loses a lot of credibility. And he's going to have a hard time convincing you of anything. If that person said, you know, here's a rose bush and these flowers are really pretty, but those pretty flowers grow on very thorny bushes, Wouldn't you like to have some of these roses? People are much more likely to buy the roses than if you just sell the roses and they have to find about the thorns themselves. And that's where we've been up until now. Get vaccinated. You know, if you get vaccinated, you'll never be stricken with Wuhan virus. You could go any place you want. If you go to Las Vegas, you're going to be really, really lucky. You could go over Niagara Falls in a barrel and not even get wet. All this kind of stuff. And it turns out it's just not true. So those people who were skeptical in the beginning because they're saying, you know, I don't like the idea of anybody sticking something in my arm that hasn't been approved by the poobahs in Washington. And then there are questions about it. So then we came along with this gaslighting. You know, there's nothing wrong. The vaccines are very safe. They'll save, and it turns out not to be true. And that just strengthens the resolve of the skeptics, and it causes some people who weren't skeptical in the beginning to become skeptics. So good that you did that, Post, but I would like to see a little bit more talk about the governor and her executive orders and what I think is governmental overreach. Okay, thus endeth the card, as you were, the Zemi-Kotny. Let's turn now to the card. And this is what I've got on the card for today. I've got, where am I here? Look at this one, I guess. I have Bavacqua versus Tweed, finishing that up from last week. I have a bandage that's slipping and falling. Yeah, okay. I don't think we're going to have the same kind of excitement that we had last Thursday. I don't think I'm going to bleed today. But stay tuned anyhow, because you know it may happen, and you know stick around.
You wore an optimistic green today.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not wearing a red shirt, so even I don't think I'm going to bleed. Okay, so I've got Bavacqua versus Tweed, the CCU versus the Sunshine Law, the CCU versus the unvaxxed, separatist versus life tenure, telemedicine versus innocent, helpless babies, Joy Reid versus innocent, helpless babies, Krytarchy versus democracy, and Frankenstein versus the village. And then some holdovers from last week. The retirement fund, Nate Berg, Bill Maher, etc. Okay, so let's go back to Bavacqua versus Tweed. This is Bavacqua's column that ran on Friday. And I have gone through the tactics that the critical race theory folks use and asked you if you see anything like that in the separatist approach. You start out with historical events, and you paint those historical events in a light most unfavorable to the oppressor, which I'll define in a moment. Then you say that because of these historical events, the system is systemically racist and cannot be changed, and it has to be replaced by something else. You tell everybody that you can't look at anything except through eyes conditioned by looking at racism. You pretend that these historical events happened yesterday and that they're still going on. And you say that the population is divided into the oppressed and the oppressor. The oppressed are white people, usually white males, usually white Christian males, or maybe white Jewish males. The oppressed are all those folks who are not counted as white, the BIPOCs. black indigenous people of color. And the theory is that the white supremacists, the oppressors, have set up a system where no BIPOC can get an even break. Now, see if you see that in any of the stuff that the separatists put out. Bavacqua is picking on Tweed in his column this week. And I'll begin at the beginning. Navy radio man George Tweed was one of the most important symbols on Guam during World War II Japanese occupation. He, along with 5 other U.S. personnel, fled into the jungles rather than be captured in December 1941. By October 1942, the rest had all been caught and executed. Only Tweed remained. Over his 31 months in hiding, dozens of Chamorro families helped Tweed, some briefly, others for long periods. Helping Tweed was one of the several ways that Chamorros during the Japanese occupation voted, often quietly or secretly, through their actions in favor of the U.S. as their, now he sneaks this one in, as their preferred colonizer. Yeah, you got to use the word colonizer, or people are not going to pay any attention. Both the U.S. and Japan became as colonizers, but the violence of one made the racism and paternalism of the other seem almost comforting. Chamorros helped Tweed and hoped he would survive as part of their overall hope that America would return to the island and that the war would end. My columns over the past few weeks have talked about the changes of identity that came about in the Chamorro people because of the war. Changes in identity. Maybe changes in identity politics. Tweed is another figure where we can see these shifts. Chamorro suffered tortures and beheadings to protect Tweed. Some were executed in the closing weeks of the war, accused of helping Tweed and the U.S. Tweed as a symbol was powerful in terms of motivating behavior and providing a feeling of hope. Tweed as a person, however, fell far short. And when Chamorros encountered him in person following the war, feelings were very different for some.
If that door wants to be opened.
Yeah. I wrote that in the late 1940s, following the end of the occupation, was actually a time of protest. I think Bavacqua was the only one that wrote that. Chamorros walked off job sites and walked out of the Guam Congress to protest their treatment by the United States. That's not the way I read it. The way I read it was that Chamorros walked out of the Congress because they wanted to be treated more by the United States. They wanted to be U.S. citizens, and they wanted an Organic Act. Not that the treatment was bad. They also protested Tweed. Tweed left Guam after the war, a minor war hero. The military filmed a mini documentary chronicling his rescue and survival. A ghostwriter took his story and published Robinson Crusoe in 1945, which I've read. When he returned to Guam, he did so with a brand new Chevrolet truck to present to Antonio Artero, whose family had provided him the most aid and hid him for most of the occupation. Tweed expected a hero's welcome when he came back to Guam in 1946. While he was treated warmly by most, he was also the subject of a protest of more than 100 in the Plaza de España. The demonstration was organized primarily by Pali Oscar Lujan Calvo, the only Chamorro priest on the island at the time after Pali Jesus Baza Duenas had been executed by the Japanese during war. The stated reason for the protest was Tweed's book and how it claimed that Duenas had revealed Tweed's whereabouts and talked to the Japanese after being interrogated and tortured. The crowd was filled with protest signs, which called Tweed a coward and questioned whether a Chevrolet was worth all the Chamorro blood spilled. One sign even said, "Thank your maker that Guam is safe. Now get." Tweed became so angry he assaulted one protester, ripping apart his sign. Why and how had Chamorros turned against Tweed so quickly and in such a public way? We'll continue to dissect the symbol of America in Japanese-occupied Guam next week. So let's go back in history and let's see if there are any silver linings out there. If we look hard enough, we could find a dark cloud. Yeah. Now, whether what Tweed put in his book was true or not is not the question. So we are seeing a precursor of the 21st century when Tweed wrote a book that was politically incorrect and was therefore canceled. And that's all we need to know, that 100 people came to the plaza to cancel Tweed. And last Friday, I talked about the bond between Antonio Artero and Tweed. They stayed in touch with one another. Antonio went to Washington and visited Tweed. They had a lifelong friendship. And Tweed was killed in a car accident when he was in his 80s. And less than a month later, as I recall, Antonio Artero died. So there's a really beautiful story here. But, you know, let that go, because it doesn't fit the narrative that we're trying to paint. Americans, the United States, bad. Chamorro, oppressed. Answer, independence.
There's also a good point that he made in this thing about the ideal of Tweed versus the personal person of Tweed.
Yeah.
And it seems to be this trend now, in looking in history, is that, you know, we always try to find this really small factor of the human person.
Yeah.
And we have this ideal that we know who they are, whether it's the presidents of the United States or any of the founding fathers, or even heroes that we think are here on Guam itself.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? If you look at each individual person for their sins, nobody is going to pass that test. Nobody, including this author, including all the other people who we all think are heroes in this world. So if we're intent on destroying people because of that,
yeah,
we're really lost.
We are, and that's exactly where the critical race theory and Bavacqua come from. So, you know, this is what's going to come out about me, Jose. Once upon a time, I was driving a nail, and I had this pretty heavy hammer. Instead of hitting the nail with a hammer, I hit my thumbnail. And I said something that I cannot say on the air.
A disparaging word.
A bad word. Profanity. And other people heard me. So no doubt when, when they get around to building a statue out in front of the station here, someone is going to come up, yeah, you build a statue to that guy. You know what he said? Yeah. But very good point. Yeah, we dig into people that have done great things that we recognize as heroes, and find their human frailties, and then trot those out to cancel them. Okay, short break, and we'll come back to the CCU versus the Sunshine Law.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Contact Express Financial for all your financial needs. Express Financial is consumer lending at its very best. They also have a host of dealer service programs with quick approvals. There are 3 ways to apply. Over the phone at 637-9834. You may visit their office in person at 600 Harmon Loop Road across the street from Costules. Or you can also visit their webpage and apply at myexpressfinancial.com. In most cases, you'll get your money the same day.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, so we finished the first item on the card. We've got Adonis Mendiola who wants to deviate from the card, but his timing is good, calling in, between items on the card. And he wants to talk about something that I really like to talk about, the Bob and Ray resolution. Now let's talk about the Bob and Ray resolution, Adonis.
Half a day, Your Honor, and I must ask you a question, so I humbly request your indulgence to explain how perhaps the Bob and Ray resolution can be carried out by the people, we the people, either by our 5,000 signatures, say, or however many it takes, and what the chances of we the people pushing that through our legislative body and presenting it before the powers that be.
I heard you discussing that with Ray this morning, and so I'm prepared. If one would turn to 3 GCA Chapter 12, there is a law called the Voter Introduction Program. And the Voter Introduction Program allows citizens who comply with its tenets to introduce bills into the legislature. While the Bob and Ray is not a bill, it's a resolution. So a certain amount of creativity would be necessary to squeeze the Bob and Ray into Chapter 12 of Title III. But it could be done, and your basic argument is that if citizens can introduce bills by going through the Chapter 12 process, I hope I'm not interrupting anything.
Sorry, no. Just getting down from my vehicle. Go ahead. You were saying about 12 GCA.
Yeah. So if 3 GCA Chapter 12 allows voters to introduce bills, then a fortiori voters should be able to introduce resolutions. And here's what it calls for. This is the Voter Introduction Program, and it says, man, that's a noisy car you got there, Adonis.
Sorry about that. Yep. No, go ahead.
Okay. A person registered to vote in Guam or a group of such persons may introduce bills into the legislature in accordance with the procedures set forth in this chapter. Such a bill is known as the VIP bill. A proposed VIP bill should be presented to the chairperson of the Committee on Rules by the sponsoring voter or voters of the bill. Next section says that the bill must be in proper form in accordance with the statute and the standing rules. See, someone who knows how to draft bills would have to draft it. Next section says that when the bill is introduced, it would have to have a public hearing no later than 45 days after introduction, which is exactly what you're aiming for, is that public hearing. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that if you did the petition signature gathering and the other things properly, you'd create such a buzz that the legislature would want to get it on for public hearing as soon as possible. Okay. Once the bill is introduced, subsequent to a public hearing, the standing committee exercising oversight over the bill at the time of hearing may make amendments, except that the sponsoring voter shall be notified of such amendments and must agree in writing to such amendment. So you would not be in a situation where you introduce a bill that calls for something to be painted red and it goes to committee and they decide to paint it green unless you went along with it. Get it? Now, here's the tough part. Section 12-107, the sponsoring voter or voters shall attach to the VIP bill when presented to the chairperson of the Committee on Rules for the purpose of introduction a petition of support for the proposed bill signed by duly registered voters in Guam numbering no less than 5% of the total number of voters who voted for the office of governor in the previous gubernatorial general election. A proposed bill shall not be considered a VIP bill unless this petition is attached with required number of valid signatures. So did you follow all that, Adonis?
Well, I'm definitely going to take notes when I go back and replay this, but I've got people listening right now taking note, and we'll get hot on it. Thank you very much. Appreciate the instruction, and we'll look forward to moving it forward as a body and as a people.
So here's what you got to do. You have to draft it as a bill, but you have to do it in such a manner that it could very easily be converted into a resolution.
Okay.
And that's how you'd have to sell it. You know, you'd have to sell it this way. It looks like a bill, but we want it to become a resolution once it gets to committee. And that's why we're doing this, and we want to get everybody to come in. We don't want to horse around with one more signature than the 5%. We want
There you go.
we want to build a huge base of signatures. And of course, the mere fact that you're doing this sends an extremely strong message to the governor, doesn't it, Adonis?
Oh, yes, it does.
Okay, well, there you go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Let's get back to the card here. And the next item on the card is CCU versus the Sunshine Law. And this comes, I'm starting this out with a story that ran on September 6th in the Post. CCU members, AG, extremely close to settling open government lawsuit. And I'm going to go through the article here so that it'll refresh your recollection. And that may very well be true, but the CCU is not extremely close to following the open government law. They apparently still see the open government law as something that is some nagging little irritation that keeps them from doing important things, when in reality, it is one of the most important things they do. That's why we elect people to public office, because we want them to communicate with us and we want them to listen to us. Okay, so here's how it goes. Current and former members of the Consolidated Commission on Utilities and the Office of the Attorney General are extremely close to settling a lawsuit alleging that the officials violated the open government law, according to Deputy Attorney General James Canto. James Canto. I always have this tendency to call him James Verse, or even James Inning, because sometimes sportscasters will say, you'll recall that Smucker Huckowitz homered in the fourth canto. All right. Attorney Duncan McCulley, counsel for the defendants, said during a status hearing Tuesday that the parties are down to the small details of a potential agreement. Now, it's interesting that the defendants hired Duncan McCulley. Yeah, when, apparently the CCU is awash in attorneys. They had Kelly Clark, Graham Botha, then they conflicted because they sat in the executive session where they were given raises. So then they brought in, what was his name? Gordon Leon Guerrero. Can't remember his first name. And now Duncan McCulley is representing the defendants. Now I wonder if it's in their individual capacity. No, it's got to be in their, well, I don't know. I got to find out. McCulley said, I need to find one of my clients, which I should be able to do. Well, I hope so. And Mr. Canto would like all of these defendants to sign off on a release, McCulley said, adding that he hoped discussions would be wrapped up by mid-October and a stipulated dismissal would be submitted to the court. The parties are to meet again before the court on October 14. In February 2020, the OAG filed a suit against current commissioners Joey Duenas, Francis Santos, Simon Sanchez, and former commissioners George Bamba and Pedro Guerrero for allegedly discussing and deciding the salary of a Guam Waterworks Authority interim general manager in 2015 during a closed-door meeting in violation of the open government law. Commissioners reportedly decided on a $28,000 raise for the GWA general manager, setting the salary at $140,000 a year. The suit came after the OAG and the Office of the Public Accountability announced a partnership to tackle the misuse of government funds. The OPA audit reported the CCU violated the open government law at least 31 times when giving salaries and bonuses to employees. The OPA recommended that the CCU take corrective action and seek repayment of the funds. Instead, the CCU held a special meeting to retroactively approve the bonuses and raises it had given in closed-door meetings. Their meeting resulted in the status quo. While the suit deals with an alleged incident in 2015, it also came after the Daily News reported in 2019 that the CCU discussed employee salaries and bonuses in a closed-door executive session on November 27, 2018. Okay, I'm going to break in here again, and you recall how it was that the Post actually latched onto that story. Because a reporter, I don't remember which paper, just ran a story. Well, they gave these guys raises in executive session. Move along, nothing to see here. I picked it up, did a sunshine, etc. Put it up on the skyline, and it turned out that, of course, it was illegal to give salary raises, etc. That was a matter that was very publicly discussed. The CCU, under the leadership of Joey Duenas, tried to finesse it and not really talk about it. I then did a FOIA for the evaluations of the two attorneys, because they both got pretty healthy raises, and I wanted to see their evaluations. Well, guess what the CCU's response to that was? Can't. It's a personnel matter. This is before the Post wrote that editorial, just blowing that one out of the water. So I continued and I pursued it, and finally the CCU voted 3-2 to release those evaluations. There wasn't much to see there. Both the guys got pretty good evaluation, nothing embarrassing, etc. And you had to wonder why the CCU wouldn't turn them loose, because if you're giving salary increases to someone, wouldn't you want to evaluate his performance before you gave that increase? And if you're an elected official, wouldn't you want the public to know why you gave those salary increases? Well, Conflicts Counsel Leon Guerrero came up with about as convoluted of advice as I've ever heard. He said, his advice was, and I was able to discover his written opinion with a sunshine request demand. He said, you can't discuss salaries in executive session, but you can discuss the evaluation. When you come out of executive session, you can't discuss the evaluation because that's a personnel matter, but you can then discuss salary. So how do you make the connection between the evaluation and the salary? That's when I said, you know, I came up with a sesquippedal word that described the process where you make important decisions by examining the entrails of dead animals. And that's kind of how the CCU is doing it. And they haven't learned anything since that time. Since that time, they adopted a rule that said if there's a sunshine law request for the evaluations of 7 of their employees, those evaluations can only be released upon the consent of the evaluatee. So in other words, they delegated compliance with the sunshine law to employees. It's cockeyed is the best I can say for it. The OAG reviewed the minutes of that meeting and found that the CU had violated the open government law. In a written letter, Camacho advised the CCU that this, wait a minute. To the CCU that salary adjustments were void and any payment, that's the Attorney General, must be paid back. The CCU has since taken remedial measures on the 2018 violation. In a pig's eye, they've taken remedial measures. All right, let's take a short break here.
Here at Guam Auto Spot, we have the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars. Like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage, as low as $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Or this 2021 Buick Encore, as low as $237 per paycheck, 0 down for 72 months. Call 478-AUTO to schedule a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
As we end pandemic unemployment assistance, or PUA, on September 4th, the Guam Department of Labor is still committed to assisting you with your employment and unemployment needs. Call 311 to book an appointment for help with claim issues, appeals, and overpayments. For new applications, the deadline to apply is October 4th. Are you still trying to get back on your feet? Let GDOL and the American Job Center assist you by calling 475-7000 or 7001. Visit dol.guam.gov for more information.
All right, so here we go. We've got about 8 more minutes till the big halftime show. I'm going to start this. I don't think I'll be able to finish it. My latest Sunshine Law letter to the CCU, it's a violation of the Sunshine Law. And this is how it reads. Your response to my Sunshine Law demand is not responsive to my demand and therefore in violation thereof. And what I demanded was all public records showing the amounts recovered from respective counsel who received pay raises that were illegal. That would be the lawyer for the Waterworks and for the Power Authority. Waterworks is Kelly Clark. Power Authority is Graham Botha. And I attached a story that ran in the Post. Some utility officials slowly pay back raises. And here's the key part. Kelly Clark, the legal counsel for GWA, received a $25,000 pay raise. It's one of the illegal pay raises, increasing his salary to $140,000 from $115,000. A payroll deduction authorization and invoice appear to show that Clark agreed to have $25 withheld per pay period to pay back the $5,027.42. Yeah, this is supposed to be responsible management, right? I mean, what a huge interest-free loan that turned out to be. So the talk on the street is that Clark is gone. Yeah.
No more Hanukkah gifts.
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, there was a job announcement that ran in the papers, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, wanted a counsel for the Waterworks Authority. And he sent one to me saying, I want to make sure you didn't miss this. It's kind of a gag email, etc. So, and people are talking. He's gone. He's left the island, right? So I wonder if he left the island, did anyone think, hey, he still owes us a pile of money? Maybe we should collect that money before he leaves? So I sent that FOIA, that Sunshine Law demand, and what I got back was a letter from Joey Duenas saying there are no such public records. Yeah. No such public records.
In other words, no, nothing has been paid back.
Well, how could that be? If there's this news story here, and the other part of the news story says that Graham Botha paid the whole thing back on the spot. It says, GPA attorney D. Graham Botha Jr., whose pay would have gone up to $144,772 from $135,000, paid back $2,213.70 in full in May. So there's got to be a public record that reflects that. There's got to be public records that reflect the whole Kelly Clark thing. Joey writes back and says there is no such public record.
What was the publication that revealed that?
The Post.
The Post. So the Post would know because they received the public record to report that.
One would think so.
Mm-hmm.
One would think so. Yeah. So, but this, of course, doesn't surprise, right? And then here's what Joey said. This letter is in response to your Sunshine Law demand for all public records showing the amounts recovered from respective counsel who received pay raises that were illegal. There are no public records responsive to your request. That's why I'm saying the Attorney General should not they haven't learned a thing. Now, it's interesting. There's a footnote here because Joey Duenas responded to my letter. I sent my letter to the general managers of each of the utilities because we went through a kerfuffle earlier where Joey said, you sent your letter, your demand to the wrong parties. This is an internal matter with the utilities. You should send it there. He couldn't have just forwarded it, so I did and decided, okay, from now on, that's what I'll do. So this time I sent it to the two general managers, Beneventi and Bordallo, and I get a response back from him, causing me to speculate maybe he was afraid to let the general managers do it, afraid that they'd do it right. So he had to take it out of their hands to prevent them from doing it right. No! So my footnote says, my demand was addressed to the two general managers as per your earlier emails. Henceforth, I will direct all Sunshine Law demands to the Commission. So that's what he said. And then I came back. My letter says the definition of public records is found at 5 GCA, section 10101, small d, which reads as follows. Time for the big halftime show. We'll come back to this after the big halftime show. CCU's on the card twice.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Holiday cleanup. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. For residents of the Northeast in areas flooded last week by the remnants of Hurricane Ida.
People living in hard-hit areas of New York and New Jersey know they still have a long road ahead of them.
Today was the first day we were actually able to
see the actual street.
At least 50 people lost their lives in the Northeast, with fears that number could rise as floodwaters go down. President Joe Biden expected to tour the devastation in New Jersey and New York Tuesday after announcing federal aid for both states that will help those who are directly impacted, something New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy says can't come soon enough.
We not only have to get people back on their feet, which we will do, and it won't be overnight, but we'll stay with them the whole way.
In Fairfield, New Jersey, Laura Engel, Fox News.
Recovery efforts continue in Louisiana as well, but showers and thunderstorms are forecast today in some of the areas hardest hit by last week's hurricane. Secretary of State Blinken and Defense Secretary Austin meeting Monday with the government leaders in Qatar to talk about security in the region in the wake of the Taliban's takeover in Afghanistan. The Taliban claims to have seized control of the last areas of resistance in the country.
Panjshir was the only province that didn't fall to the Taliban as the group raced across Afghanistan last month. But the Taliban claims it has now captured the mountainous valley near Kabul and says the victory completes its takeover. Opposition forces, including remnants of the regular Afghan army, claim the fight isn't over. Meanwhile, the Taliban still hasn't named a government, the group insisting it will announce an administration within days.
Fox's Simon Owen. Wisconsin Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher on Fox News Primetime says Congress needs to be asking some hard questions.
There needs to be a thorough investigation into the way in which this absolute blunder occurred, and I fear we need people to be held accountable.
America is listening to Fox News.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
A homeowner's policy protects much more than just your house. It also protects you against claims from someone being hurt on your property. If a visitor is injured at your place, how much are you covered for? The smart thing to do is get the answer today.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
Monday meant the end of supplemental federal unemployment benefits for millions of Americans, also ending a program that provided assistance to the self-employed and so-called gig workers. A Texas election reform bill delayed when Democrats fled the state several weeks ago will be signed into law today.
Governor Greg Abbott signed the SB 1 election security bill in Tyler, Texas, setting new rules for mail-in voting, increasing the number of partisan poll watchers, and giving the state more control over local voting operations. Many Democrats who opposed the bill left the state to prevent its passage. In the end, the bill passed 80-41 in the state House, 19-13 in the state Senate, voting pretty much along party lines. Governor Abbott says the bill makes it easier to vote and harder to cheat. Republicans say the bill will stop fraud and bolster confidence in voting integrity. Democrats say there's no evidence of voter fraud. Ann Carrick, Fox News.
California's recall election is just a week away and getting some attention from the White House.
Kamala Harris will join Governor Gavin Newsom on the campaign trail later this week in the Bay Area. Recent polling shows Newsom up by nearly 20 points among likely voters as he and big-name Democrats try to convince people that this recall effort is a Republican power grab. They're also taking aim at the GOP frontrunner in this recall election, conservative talk show host Larry Elder. Out of the GOP contenders, Larry Elder is leading by double digits. He calls Governor Newsom an absolute disaster and says he has done a bad job.
Fox's Christina Coleman. A statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee that has towered over the former Confederate capital for more than 130 years will be removed from Richmond's Monument Avenue tomorrow, ending more than a year-long legal battle with residents who'd opposed its removal. The Virginia Supreme Court ruling last week the state has the right to remove the statue, despite deed restrictions on the property. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
As we end pandemic unemployment assistance, or PUA, on September 4th, the Guam Department of Labor is still committed to assisting you with your employment and unemployment needs. Call 311 to book an appointment for help with claim issues, appeals, and overpayments. For new applications, the deadline to apply is October 4th. Are you still trying to get back on your feet? Let GDOL and the American Job Center assist you by calling 475-7000 or 7001. Visit dol.guam.gov for more information.
Here at Guam Auto Spot, we have the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars. Like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage. As low as $127 per paycheck, 0 down. Or this 2021 Buick Encore. As low as $237 per paycheck, 0 down for 72 months. Call 478-AUTO to schedule a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
So going back to Joey Duenas and the CCU, I sent a letter, I sent a FOIA demand to the general managers of the two utilities, which is what he kind of scolded me about earlier. And then he answers my Sunshine Law demand, again, causing me to speculate that he didn't want the general managers to do it because they might do it right. So he had to take it away from them, to send it back and tell me that there were no public records showing how much the amounts recovered from respective counsel who received pay raises that were illegal. I then set out the definition for public records, which is at 5 GCA 10101D, and it reads like this. Public records includes any writing containing information relating to the conduct of the public's business, prepared, owned, used, or retained by any state or local agency in any format, including electronic format, and any out-of-court settlement records. So this obviously came from a Model Act somewhere, state or local records, right? But you know, the fact that you don't want to turn something loose, or even that you don't have to turn something loose, does not mean that it's not a public record. Because there is a later section in the statute that says, that gives the director discretion not to comply with a Sunshine Law demand in certain cases. But that doesn't mean that the demanded documents are not public records. Now, I suppose it's possible for the government to keep records that are not public records. I don't know what they would be. But anyhow, it's clear that when these two guys got illegal raises and they have to pay it back, and one of them signed a payment agreement, that it's clear that is the government. Those records show how the agency is conducting the public's business, and there's no reason why we can't see them. So my letter goes on to say, in order to refresh your recollection and establish context, I have pasted in a news article from the August 19, 2019 issue of the Guam Daily Post. Note well the highlighted references to counsel for the two utilities, their illegal pay raises, and terms of recovery. So if you don't believe me, read it in the paper. It's patently obvious that the clawback of illegal salary increases comes within the ambit of Section 10101D. You're required to email the demanded documents forthwith. And then I sweetened the pot a little bit by sending another Sunshine Law demand, which says no later than September 7, which is today, you're required to email me the following. 1, public records displaying the source of your authority to speak for the commission in the absence of a properly adopted motion, rule, or resolution. I suspect it's an email from Melvin Wanpat, because that's the way he does it over at Chamorro Self-Determination, right? 2, public records displaying your authority to send the response set out supra. 3, public records displaying communications with the Guam Daily Post related to the news article set out infra. 4, the notifications of personnel action, sometimes referred to as GG1s, for Graham Botha, ESQ, and Kelly Clark, ESQ, counsel for GPA and GWA, respectively, for the period beginning November 27, 2018 to the present. Now, if Joey had just sent the stuff along initially, that would have been it. He just made more work for himself and for me, because instead of doing it the right way, there's this desire to finesse it, you know? So I've been through this before. But you have the CC, as you were both, the utilities have counsel. So there are a couple of different ways you could phrase this matter to counsel. You could say, Counselor, I got this Sunshine Law request. Is there any reason that I can't comply with the Sunshine Law demand? Well, no, or yes, but, or whatever, right? That's question number 1. Second approach. Counsel, I got this Sunshine Law demand. Do I have to give that? Do I have to provide that? Well, yeah, you probably do. Can you come up with a reason that I don't have to comply with it? Well, okay, let me see what I can do. I'll hit the books, do some research, see if I can find a reason you don't have to do it. That's what lawyers do. Don't depend on the lawyer to be your conscience. You know, when Charles Manson went to trial, he had a lawyer. I don't like Sunshine Law demands. I don't like Klitzkie. I want you to hit the books, and every time he sends in one of these demands, I want you to do your best to find some reason for not releasing the records that he asked for. It's not working very well. Not working well at all.
It's like some weird exercise in endurance.
Exactly. And, you know, if you don't want to do the Sunshine Law stuff, don't run for election, because your job is to keep the public informed. And if the public wants to use the Sunshine Law as a matter of keeping you informed because you're not doing it yourself, then you better get used to it.
That is kind of strange. The commission is an elected commission.
Yes.
So in a sense, there is that onus to the public.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not to a sense, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, they weren't appointed by the governor. They were elected by the public.
We're doing the AG next.
Yeah. Okay, so moving right along, next item on the card is the CCU versus the unvaxxed, with a subtitle, Cover. CCU leaves vaccination testing policy up to agency management, so long as they don't answer any Sunshine Law demands. And I got somebody maybe somebody wants to jump in here before I go on to the next item on the card. Yeah, it's R. James. Okay, what is our James wants to talk about? The Sunshine Law. Okay, tell me about the Sunshine Law, our James.
Well, okay, with regards to the things along the lines of the Sunshine Law and making requests to the governor's office, et cetera, Ray and I were having a discussion this morning, and somebody asked the question about where's the AG at in all of this, and how come the AG is not stepping up and protecting the people? And the first thing that I thought was, well, the AG might be elected now, but and correct me if I'm wrong here, and this is the question for those out there that are wondering, is or is not the AG's office and the AG itself, isn't their first loyalty to protecting and or working for the government, not necessarily the people? I could be wrong there, but I don't know.
It's one of these hair-splitting type answers. The Attorney General the statute said he is the lawyer for the government of Guam. So the government of Guam, all of its agencies, et cetera, and all of those acting in their official capacity are his clients. However, within his ambit of control is the territorial prosecutor. So when someone in the government of Guam, and of course in his individual capacity, commits a crime, it's the Attorney General's job to see to it that that person is prosecuted for the crime. To further complicate matters, the statute says that the Attorney General has the power and authority of the Attorney General at common law, which means that he can, in the right circumstances, challenge the constitutionality of statutes that come out of our legislature, when ordinarily it's his job to defend the laws of the territory. So his duty does not lie with advancing the interests of citizens, I think that's what you're kind of getting at, right?
Right, yeah. Somebody this morning called in and said, hey, where's the AG in all of this protecting the people against these quote-unquote mandates? And like I said, it gets, and as you just explained, it gets very convoluted, but it's always been my basic understanding that the Attorney General, not just for the territory of our beautiful island, but even the AG of the state, if the governor steps up and says, no, you're not going to rule on this, it gets into conflict of interest and all kinds of very convoluted stuff. But their first loyalty is to work, quote unquote, for the government and the governor. And that's what I thought.
Well, I think the word work for is doesn't take us to the right place, R. James. Work for means the governor calls up the Attorney General and says, I want to go out and spend a lot of money on hotels. The procurement law doesn't seem to allow it, but I want you to come up with an opinion that says that I can do that. That would be working for the government. So before we elected the Attorney General, the Attorney General was appointed by the governor and confirmed by the legislature. And of course, there was a lot of criticism of that system. Wags like me said things like, well, the governor can play the Attorney General like a cheap violin. He doesn't have any independence. That shouldn't be the case with an elected Attorney General. The elected Attorney General, now this is kind of corny, but the elected Attorney General's first loyalty is to the law, not to the governor, right, or not to governmental officials or to the public, to the law.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it gets real convoluted, but I think the bottom line is my answer to the gentleman that called in and talked to Ray this morning would have been, hey, man, don't put a lot of faith and hope in the fact that the AG's office is going to stand up and make a press release saying that the governor's mandates are against the Constitution or the people or the Organic Act or whatever. and that they're going to tell the governor, "And I'm sorry, governor, but you can't do this." We can't put our faith in that, because that's not going to happen. I don't.
Well, there's another rule that comes into play here, R. James, and that's this: people are policy. If we had Doug Moylan as our Attorney General, I think things would go much, much more in a much different direction, because Doug Moylan was a very independent kind of guy.
Yeah.
And took a very aggressive approach to his duties, unlike
and
everybody.
That's why he wasn't nominated.
Well, not nominated. Perhaps why he wasn't reelected.
Yeah.
But ever since Doug Moylan, we have not had an aggressive attorney general.
Yeah. Okay, that tells me what I needed to know, Bob. I hope that answers everybody else's question about, well, is the AG's office going to help us out and stand up for we the people?
Okay, thanks, R. James. Good talking to you. And we got Martinez, who wants to talk about media and the budget. All right. Oops. Tell me.
Hello, Bob, you can hear me?
I can, yeah.
Senator, director, teacher, union organization, legislature, governor, legal counsel, clerk of the Guam court. Klitzkie's been over this cable TV talk show host, lieutenant colonel in the Guam National Guard, vice president of a large private and successful business, long-distance runner, judge, now host of Tow Tales, but the greatest title of all, private first class United States Marine Corps. All right, here's what I want to say, sir. Because we disagree, I favor Senate pay raises, you don't, I expect that. But what really gets me is how the media jumps on it. When, of course, more than me, I was affected because I had to go and teach. The teacher strike was over the pay raise. They should have begged Governor Paul Cowell to give. But when the legislature gave themselves a pay raise, the lame duck legislature in 1980, going to 81, I was down there to Pacell. They struck, and it was a 9-week strike. And then when we had the pay raise of rates and oil, in 2014, we never heard the end of it. Fine. But the senators raised their budget $500,000 just last week at a time like this when we lost $93 million COVID. When I went to OG, it was free. Like I said, I was talking to Gina's son. He's paying $222. Awesome. That's how much that is? They cut even $1 million. The police, the same. GCC, the same. The fire, the same. I can see them cutting DOE a little because they're going to get a lot of COVID money. What is wrong with the media? This is at least 3-day story. What is wrong with them? If I was a media boss, I'd call them in and say, what is wrong with you people? We had 3, and Tina, you think about Tina. She's always in the news, but we've had the most important legislative votes in the last 15 days, and she's garbage in this. So count Tina. You only had Mary Torres, who's only mad because she didn't get her nurse's pay raise because her daughter's a nurse. Joanne Brown was right. Her reason for one gets there's not enough revenue. And then Tana Patella was, well, might not be enough for tax refunds. All of them are to blame. Senator, you're a former senator. What do you the hell? Sorry, you think it's wrong? I'm talking about PNC, Post, PDN, KUAM, Toledo. What do you think is wrong with them?
Well, what's wrong with them is they don't understand that the people really depend on them as members of what we refer to as the fourth estate.
Which is?
Well, the term fourth estate has been around for centuries.
For the state. Okay, I understand. They said for the state. I understand now.
Yeah.
But the media, those reporters wouldn't understand that. I mean, and why doesn't management call them in and say what's wrong with you? Don't they want to sell news? What do you think it is? What do you think it is, Bob? I mean, it's total incompetence plus some. What do you think it is?
Well, I can't argue with you when you say incompetence. Ordinarily, reporters are out there trying to get the scoop, trying to write the story that has an edge to it, that tells people something that they didn't know, something that's going on. And I've gotten on PNC more than once for just running press releases as though it was hard news.
You're right.
Yeah, so the only one that really seems to be doing the job is the Post, and even the Post has its weak moments.
Well, they got some good reports. I mean, the headlines, UOG students got paid $3,000 a semester resident, and UOG gets cut $1 million. The fire gets nothing extra. GCC gets nothing extra the police, but our senators get $500,000 extra. And they're going to get away with it because the media's let them get away with it. I would name everyone. Let me finish this. You were down at the legal council. One of the things I always remember about G. Ricardo Salas. In June 21st, I remember the date because I was there, the legislature, and I guess you were legal counsel, sir. We're talking the legislature that was elected in 74. So it was the 13th, the first Republican. They passed the casino gambling bill, 15 yes. And it took time to transmit it. Ricky vetoed it on the pulpit of the Catholic Church Sunday afternoon about 1 o'clock. The Baptist kid, I was there. The next day, the override, only 7 voted for it. G. Ricardo Salas got up. And this could have been June 22nd, 1976, a month after it came. And he yelled, he got close to the man. You hypocrites! You hypocrites! There's 15 of us that voted for it. It's the same bill. He goes into the pulpit, and it's 8 of you chicken out. If I was a senator, I would get up. This time, you don't do this in caucus. They deserve it. And I'd give them a tongue lashing and name each one. $500,000 while everybody's suffering. I don't care. The caucus, this is something, but the media is just incompetent. They have a duty to do this. So a little bit of news for half a week. Thank you, Senator. I got a vent. Thank you.
Okay, Martinez. Yeah, well, he makes a good point. This is not a time. And again, I come back to the same solution that I've been, suggesting for a long time. We need a part-time legislature. We don't need these kinds of people. These career politicians who look at being a senator as a job, as employment, as a career, instead of as public service, where you get in, you serve a couple of terms, you get the hell out. And you have a real job during the time that you're in. You go into session a couple times a year. You go into panic overdrive, keep your job, keep your business going, serve as a senator, and act in favor of the people instead of the institution called the legislature. Martinez really nailed it today.
Well, they started it again. I'll keep saying it with the Youth Congress. They drone it into them that this is their lifeline now.
Yeah, it's good experience for them, yeah. All right, I got somebody else trying to get into the green room here. That would be another Joe. Okay, what does another Joe want to talk about, Jose? Not compact, impact, and our Carl, of course. I'll just pick up another Joe. Go for it, another Joe.
So you're talking about something about budgets, and I think people were getting upset because was it $500,000 was taken from the mayors and given to UOG for recycling? And I'm trying to be optimistic and look to see, okay, what can UOG accomplish that the mayors did not with regards to recycling and trash? Have you heard anything, Uncle Bob? Or
not a thing, yeah.
And all I've heard is something about meetings. It costs so much to have meetings. Okay, so then how is the work of picking up trash and dealing with it, whether you recycle or, preferably it's reduced to reuse and not put in the landfills because that costs money to condition another cell once it fills up. So anyway, I want to be optimistic, but I want to hear more about them accomplishing something. Are you optimistic about or what?
When it comes to the Mayor's Council, I am never optimistic. So long as they would tolerate an executive director who testifies in open court in favor of a felon, a former commissioner of Jonia. I'm not optimistic about them at all. If they tolerate that, there doesn't seem much limit to their ability to not understand what should be done and shouldn't be done.
Oh, that might be why. Was it $500,000 was taken from the mayor's council and given to UOG for a recycling program? But I haven't heard anything yet about the recycling program, how they're going to accomplish stuff.
Can't tell you another, Joe.
All right, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we're going to go to Wrigley Field, and when I come out of Wrigley Field, I'm going to be looking for the most dangerous man in Chicago.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Mescla, read all about it. Check out Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Tuman for lunch, serving up some savory seafood specials such as spicy garlic shrimp, candied salmon, or better yet, the local favorite, snapper or shrimp escabeche, available only during lunch hours. Make sure to come down and try these tasty specials and more. Call 969-2652 for more info or to make a reservation. Located at the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tuman, Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, a true taste of Guam.
Okay, so here we are at Wrigley Field for the 7th inning stretch, and Stretchy himself is out there in the center field bleachers, the most dangerous man in Chicago. Also known as Our Carl. Go for it, Our Carl.
Hey, Bob, good afternoon, and good afternoon, Jose, and your international Tall Tales listening audience. I'm not going to say a whole lot this afternoon. I just wanted to kind of chime in about why the journalists seem to not be doing their job as the fourth estate. And I think that, it's with many things these days, it comes back to our friend who one academic termed the most dangerous socialist in history, Antonio Gramsci. Right now I'm picking my way through, kind of nibbling my way through a book by Mark Levin. It's his latest book, and it's titled American Marxism. It's really quite interesting because I'm always curious, how did we get to this crazy point in history? And, with a few of the things I read, I try and piece things together and connect the dots. And I think a lot of it, journalism has changed, law has changed, history, the teaching of history, the teaching of law, the teaching of so many things has changed since the 60s. And there's one quote I'd like to read from Mark Levin. This book, by the way, sold over 400,000 copies in its first week of release. So, yeah, there was a lot of people that were interested in what he had to say. But this one short quote says, "Clearly academia is not merely about teaching students how to think, or in the case of Marxism and CRT, or critical race theory, what to think, through repetition and indoctrination, but to develop an army of activist revolutionaries." And I think this comes back to a quote by Howard Zinn, the famous quote leftist historian. Zinn openly acknowledged that he was not interested in teaching accurate history, which is one reason why his People's History, what is the title of his book? American.
It's the People's History of the United States.
Yeah, of the United States, exactly. But he came out and he admitted that I'm not interested in teaching history. I'm interested in changing the world. And his book does not have the normal, what you would call footholds, a note section in the back. And the same thing with the 1619 project. There are no references, there are no source notes, there are no footnotes, nothing. There's a bunch of wild claims, and there's none of these things to back them up. So where do you get this? And so I think academia has changed in its mission over the years, and that includes journalism. They're churning out young activist revolutionaries. That they see their main mission in life, the journalists, for example, is not in giving accurate news. It's to change the world.
Well, I would go along with you from everybody that I read that writes for mainland newspapers, but for people that write, the reporters in our papers here, they don't seem to be capable of changing even their skivvy drawers. The way they gloss over real important news.
Yeah, I was kind of hopeful, with PDN having having new owners. I was really crossing my fingers, and I was cautiously optimistic. But from what I've seen, it's just more of the same. And I like the term Pacific Daily News as Me Too journalism. It's what we see in the corporate media. I don't say mainstream because I think that's a bad description. Corporate media. And they just basically mimic it. It's just like a echo chamber, and it's sad because it's nice to have, if we're going to have the equivalent of the Washington Post or the New York Times on Guam with their leftist editorial view. It's kind of nice to have the the equivalent of the what would the right wing equivalent be? The
Washington Times.
Yeah, Washington Times. It's kind of nice to have that balance. And I think Guam Daily Post does, like you said, a lot of times they do pretty well, but even they, sometimes they get into that Me Too mode, and you just roll your eyes and think, wow, we already get this in the other newspaper, and it's coming over here too. I mean, what is the point, of even reading these newspapers? It's just Me Too journalism. Anyway, that's just some thoughts I wanted to toss out there for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, well, worth a lot, our girl. Thanks a lot for calling in.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to add a few comments. I appreciate it.
All righty. Okay, well, it's our Carl, and I'm going to relate a personal experience here with PNC. This deals with Talina Nelson, the Vice Speaker of the Legislature. And Talina Nelson, the Vice Speaker of the Legislature, said that, she did a press release that the governor had to sign these program agreements with the Joint Forces Marianas in order for them to be valid. And she said, I have a 1982 Superior Court case that, that holds that. So I sent a letter, please send me a copy of the case. I got a very polite letter from her staff. We've received your letter. We'll see what we can do. Nothing happened. So I sent a sunshine. And the sunshine came back, we don't have that. If you don't have it, how were you talking about it, right? So then I sent another sunshine saying, did you just do this to get some earned media? Send me all of the public records that you relied on when you did this release. She sends back the digital copy of the Organic Act of Guam. Now, the first story ran on PNC. So I sent this whole email chain to the PNC reporter, and I said, look where your story went. And And I said, if you want to do a follow-up, I'll do an interview. Well, let me check. And he comes back and he says, well, since she actually sent the letter to the Attorney General, we don't think there's anything to cover here. So I waited for probably too long, and then I did another Sunshine Law demand asking for everything, all correspondence with the Attorney General. The Attorney General wrote back and shot her down. Said there was nothing there at all. I sent that to PNC. You know what PNC did with it? Not a thing. So it's okay. You know, if you're a reporter, it's okay to have a senator just tell you a story. That there's this 1982 case that says this, that, and the other thing. When it's shown that the senator didn't have the case, didn't know what she was talking about, and the Attorney General closes the books by saying the same thing, this is not news. But when the senator does the press release saying, this is what I've got, that's news. It's really, really, you know, Martinez is really correct. The only way that you can find out what's really going on here, thank goodness we got Troy, because Troy has some of what I would consider to be reporter's instincts. He's one of the few.
Or just plain curiosity.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You know, it seems like a senator or a public figure can tell a reporter, I've developed a new home industry on Guam. I'm partnering up with Elon Musk, who's going to send this very large rocket ship to the moon, which we all know is made of green cheese. And we're going to package it and sell it here, green cheese from Guam. Oh, okay. When do you think you'll start this industry? Have you named the spaceship yet? Is the pilot Chamorro?
Is it solar powered?
Is it solar powered? Yeah, and just taking it at face value. Well, yeah, I guess the moon must be made out of green cheese because, well, that's what he told me.
Press release.
Yeah, press release. All right, let's see who else we got here. We got Drive-Through Jack talking about something to eat, and who turns up a Drive-Through Jack? Let's hear Jack's theme song, Jose. Come and get your chow, Jack. Drive-Through Jack.
Yeah, what's that? It's Parvo's whistle or Parvo's. I forgot what it was called.
It's called, Chow Call, Jack.
Well, anyways, I called because, I'm hungry. I can't go anywhere right now. But, you know, for the past week or so, I was really disappointed about the Guam Hotel and Restaurant Association's, Mary Rhodes' response to the new mandatories, in that she wants to take a poll or issue out a questionnaire on how her association wants to deal with this, or what they think about these new mandates. I mean, that's really a slap in the face of discrimination. It's really a slap in the face on anybody with First Amendment rights. It's a slap in the face for people seeking justice, that you need to take a poll and you can't tell by the face of it that it's completely wrong. And I knew it when I heard her interview the first time. She wasn't strong on it. She wasn't weak on it. She was nothing about it. She was incidental about it. And I'll let you know right now, the businesses I will support are those that will let us vaccinated come in and unmask, come in and eat and dine. And the ones I also will support are those that will say, hey, you know, I understand you're unvaxxed and that you need to do the takeout. Guess what? We're giving you an extra 5 or 10% off on takeouts. That's a sign of support for us unvaxxed people out there. But it's also a sign to your customer base that, hey, you know, we know times are tough. We're giving you an extra bump on the end. I will not support someone that just says, hey, come in, sign here, let me see your vax card. And, oh, by the way, you can't use our bathroom. You can miss me with all that nonsense. And, I've already made my complaint about the PDN. I made that complaint a long time ago. It won't change, even with the Moylan's in charge. If your guidance is the Moylan's position on politics, then you know that it's a bad guidance, and no real change is going to come to that industry whatsoever. It's about the bottom line. And, I just hope everybody's out there safe. And, I watched your YouTube channel over the weekend, and I didn't realize how bad the incident last Thursday was over there. But I hope that you're doing well, Bob.
Well, it just goes to show you, Jack, that I bleed for the tailgaters.
You do, sir. You do. And at least there's some good news about the abortion ban in Texas. There's some good news. Project Veritas has won their 300-some plus retraction. There's some good news. There's small rays of hope. This is a long war, and we lose some battles, we win some battles, but we need to be strong on all fronts. And just remember who the friends are and who the enemies are, and they'll remain the same. And this crisis is not over. I don't think it'll ever. It's just the beginning of it. And we need to watch our neighbors and what's happening in Australia. We need to watch the data coming out of Israel. You need to do some other news guidelines besides what Google gives you. So get a new search engine like DuckDuckGo. But, keep informed, keep the faith, have faith, and, be strong out there. It's a long battle. And I just want everybody to keep their heads up.
Okay, Drive-Through Jack. Words of wisdom.
All right, Bob.
Words of wisdom from the Drive-Through King. Drive-Through Jack. Very good, Drive-Through Jack. Okay, let's head for Churchill Downs.
Leah Dunca from Security Title here with a little information about trusts. A trust is a legal entity capable of owning property. It can protect property from issues such as lawsuits or divorce and can be used to distribute property and avoid probate. Many trusts start as revocable but become irrevocable when the initial trustees die. Work with your estate planning attorney to see if a trust is a good fit for your family property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
There's so much that's new with the Eat Fresh, Refresh at Subway restaurants that we can't possibly fit it all into one radio spot, but I'm gonna try. There are amazing new toppings like hickory smoked bacon, bacon and smashed avocado. Try your favorite sub on the new breads like the hearty multigrain wheat or the artisan Italian white bread. Not to mention Subway's thicker, juicier steak. That's all I have time for. You gotta refresh to be fresh. Only at Subway.
Okay, next item on the card is CCU versus the Unvaxxed with a subtitle cover. And the title of this article that ran in the Post, CCU leaves vaccination testing policy up to agency management. The Consolidated Commission on Utilities has adopted an amended resolution that directs management of the Guam Power Authority and the Guam Water Works Authority to develop and implement a vaccination and testing policy. Wouldn't one think that this would be something that the commission would do? Isn't this a policy matter?
I wash my hands.
Yeah. And of course, this was not the approach taken with the evaluations of employees. The amended resolution removes the mandatory nature of the original resolution and leaves that up for management to decide. according to Commissioner Simon Sanchez, who proffered the amendment. Management may still decide to make vaccination and testing mandatory, but of course, if they do, they will take the heat for the decision, not the commission. That's why I subtitled this cover. Commission's looking for cover. Sanchez, Commissioner Pedro Roy Martinez, and Chairman Joey Duenas voted for the amended resolution Tuesday night. Commissioner Francis Santos voted for Sanchez's amendment, but voted against the total amended resolution. Commissioner Mike Limtiaco voted against the amendment and the resolution. Both commented that commissioners were essentially shifting their responsibility by not taking a position. Yeah. I have this mental image of the 5 commissioners sitting there, and there's an Otno behind them, and they reach in and they pull out this gigantic Idaho potato, and it's really hot. And Joey grabs it and says, "Oh boy, Simon, here, take this. This is hot." And they sit around juggling this hot potato until finally one of them says, yeah, so they're juggling this hot potato until finally Joey takes it and John, catch, and tosses it to John Beneventi. And he says, "John, you and Maggette take care of this hot potato. We don't want to burn our fingers on it anymore." Wow. Sanchez said that was a fair criticism. It was a fair criticism. But it wouldn't be the first time that management would be granted a broad policy decision by the CCU. This kind of sounds like the Mario Cuomo defense, the governor of New York. You've been hugging these girls and kissing them, and oh yeah, but I've been doing that for a long time, so I think it's okay, right? Yeah. Sanchez said it was a fair criticism, but it wouldn't be the first time that management would be granted a broad policy decision by the CCU. The resolution follows recent Wuhan virus mandates by the governor, including an executive order mandating vaccination among agencies' employees or for unvaccinated to go through weekly testing. The original resolution would have directed management at both utilities to create a mandatory vaccination policy in alignment with the order, federal guidance, and a memorandum from the U.S. Department of Justice. Well, both of them have lawyers. Well, at least the Waterworks has a lawyer. I don't know about Power Authority. The GWA alone, for GWA alone, there are about 70 employees in operational divisions who are unvaccinated. And if an outbreak did occur, that would severely hamper the utility's ability to staff those divisions, according to GWA manager Miguel Bordazzo. So the bottom line for us is anything that we can do to mitigate that risk that is within the law, we want to do in order to protect the health and safety of our employees. And of course, provide the critical services that are necessary to serve our customers. Throughout the meeting, Sanchez said he was wrestling with the original resolution because he valued individual rights, but is also concerned with the impact of Wuhan virus on Guam's medical infrastructure. The discourse over vaccination mandates was also present to an extent during CCU discussions, both during Thursday's meeting and earlier work sessions. While he joined in voting against the amended resolution, Santos did speak on the need for a vaccination policy at the utilities. "I know it's a tough decision on our part, but at the end of the day, there's about 115 Waterworks employees that are not vaccinated," he said during discussions before the vote. "Either we help ourselves or ignore the fact that someone is going to get Wuhan in our workplace. It's a guarantee, because I don't know where you go, who you see, who you talk to, who you touch. Limtiako had been critical of a mandatory vaccination policy, referring to people who have made the choice not to take the vaccine due to more serious side effects. However extremely unlikely those side effects may be. I have expressed my concern in the working session that making the vaccine a condition of employment, it's completely unacceptable, he added. Well, that's why we have boards and commissions. The theory is that with a board or commission, a multi-member decision-making body, you're going to come up with a higher quality of decisions than if you let just one person make that decision. That's why we have boards and commissions. It would be a lot cheaper, a lot faster, and certainly a lot easier if we went back to the old way of running the Power Authority and the Water Authority, which was the governor named the director and the legislature confirmed. We got some really interesting picks for that. People that, knew something about, you flip the switch if you want the lights to go on. So I've been a great champion of the CCU since it was created. Since 2001, the power and water utilities have improved dramatically. And I give all of the credit to the CCU. But the CCU has to act like a commission, not like a buck passer. And I was not happy when I found out that they're passing this on to a unilateral decision-making function. And of course, you could have different policies at power than you have at water, since each director makes his own policy. Maybe I'll send them some FOIAs. Maybe that'll help them sharpen their thinking. Okay, next item on the card is called separatist versus life tenure. And when I say life tenure, what I mean is life tenure for the judge of the District Court of Guam. Our judge does not have life tenure. Our judge is appointed for a term of 10 years, appointed by the president, confirmed by the Congress. At the expiration of that term, the judge continues as a holdover appointee until a new appointment is made. Judge Frances Gatewood is, I think, 4 years into her holdover right now. This is not a good system. Now, federal judges have life tenure. They're appointed for good behavior, so they have a life tenure. And those who favor life tenure for judges say that a judge can only be impartial if he has life tenure. No matter what he does, no matter what his decisions are, he can't be kicked out of office unless he does something illegal, and then he can be impeached. This is where I'll start tomorrow, separatist versus life tenure. Okay, I got to go home and put this bandage back on. I'll see you tomorrow. Adios.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Back to the White House. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Biden returning last night from a long weekend at his home in Delaware, spent without speaking publicly about the situation in Afghanistan.
The president spent part of Labor Day glad-handing at a union hall in Delaware. He hasn't spoken about Afghanistan in 6 days when he boasted about
the extraordinary success of this mission.
But the rhetoric and the reality still don't match. Like 6 planes with Americans and Afghan interpreters that can't take off because of the Taliban. Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw tweets, as Kamala campaigns in California and Biden goes back on his Delaware retreat, there are still Americans and allies trying to get out of Afghanistan. They have planes. They are ready to go, but Taliban won't let them, and Biden burned up any leverage we had. A White House official tells Fox we continue to work around the clock to ensure safe passage out for any Americans who are seeking to leave Afghanistan.
Fox's Peter Ducey. On Tuesday, the president will visit some of the areas in New York and New Jersey hit hard by last week's flooding.
The president accepted our request for a major disaster declaration in 6 New Jersey counties.
And New Jersey's Governor Phil Murphy says he'll ask the president for a broader declaration during today's visit. Compounding misery for residents in some parts of Louisiana, a heat advisory Monday in areas of the state where many still have no power.
You've got crews who are working around the clock to try to get power restored, but you still have hundreds of thousands of people who are without power. Lawmakers like Congressman Troy Carter say it could be weeks until utilities are fully restored for some of the hardest hit spots.
Fox's Jeff Paul reports showers and thunderstorms are forecast for southeast Louisiana today. Thousands of residents of South Lake Tahoe have been able to return to their homes. Evacuation orders lifted as firefighters have managed to stall the advance of the Caldor wildfire that had threatened that resort area. America is listening to Fox News.
Hey, it's Brett Larson, inviting you to download and listen to the new daily Fox on Tech podcast. There's part of a colorful late 90s iMac on Mars.